Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Success Sampath interacting with you. Do you want to become IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS? Ladies and gentlemen, we Unacademy, with top educators of India and meticulously designed, the very quality content. We have been waiting for you, waiting to shape you especially, so that you realize your dream, goal. You become officer according to your own capacity. Once you enroll yourself in an academy, ladies and gentlemen, let me assure you, you will undergo a great learning experience. You know very well about an academy. This is India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you are likely to get once you enroll yourself in an academy? Ladies and gentlemen, if that's going to be your question, yes, you got daily live classes. You can chat with your educator, and you can also engage yourself in all round productive discussions. You can also ask all your genuine doubts, and you can also participate in the answer polls, ladies and gentlemen. So all these things you can do when the session's going on. Is that way? And you got structured courses here, completely based on UPSC examination, especially civil service examination, a pattern as well as the syllabus, so that you never get deviated from the expected framework. You save your time and energy. It is not knowing this stuff, knowing to deliver this stuff. We are keep on emphasizing this particular point, ladies and gentlemen. It's not what you deliver, rather how do you deliver, because delivery matters. When that is the situation, we got a mechanism for that particular purpose. We evaluate your preparation, especially at various stages, ladies and gentlemen, at various stages. And we conduct for that particular purpose, regular mock tests and quiz programs. You get in turn a detailed analysis based on your performance. You come to know where you are strong, where you are weak, and the time you have consumed in solving a particular question. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that once you enroll yourself in an academy, you got unlimited access. With that, that you can access all the live and recorded videos. And it's also, that another thing we are emphasizing here, whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is a mobile phone, laptop, desktop, you can learn from anywhere, anytime, ladies and gentlemen. So what you have to do to avail all these benefits, if that's going to be your question, please download an academy learning app immediately, whatever may be, whether it is Android or iOS. Ladies and gentlemen, once you download, you are likely to encounter all this, the benefits. And who is this interacting with you? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Success Sampath from Chennai, with unique experience of, the got exposed to the fields of, engineering, management and legal education, with 25 years of experience in the field of, coaching, especially shaping the careers of civil service aspirants. With my team, I could witness, the 250 plus results as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS. All my, students are working in different parts of India, and some of them in abroad as well. You can also ask me, sir, what's your vision? Yes, to be part of the solution, to provide career solution, especially by enabling youths of India to begin, at that our national level, later to embrace the global community. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular vision of mine, fortunately, is completely in alignment with an academy's vision. We are working together to shape you, to sculpt you, so that you realize your dream, you reach your goal. You can also reach me, ladies and gentlemen, using my ID, say Success Sampath or Sampath Iruvengidam. That you can reach me in Telegram channel, even that YouTube part of an academy, and also that by downloading, that you got that an academy platform itself, you got that a lot of videos there. You can, ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. It's not only me, that more than 100 plus top educators of India waiting to shape you, waiting to shape your career, right? It's that way. As a team, we are working, that 100 plus top educators, as I mentioned. Not only that, that under UPSC Civil Services Examination, ladies and gentlemen, we've got, more than 15,000 courses, subject specific module, duration specific module. Yes. And we have devised for a practical purpose, of course, that plus program and iconic program, part of this, that civil service examination mechanism. What is this plus program? Yes, you got this much advantages. You got live sessions, test series, unlimited practice sessions, and structured schedule mechanism part of this plus program. That the very program you can join, that either the 12 months program or 24 months program, you choose accordingly. And you please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount, ladies and gentlemen. But more than this, plus program, we strongly recommend, highly recommend the iconic program, another one which has got more advantages than this, the plus program. Yes, iconic. What is this, the unique feature of this iconic program? If you ask me, you will be allotted a specialized coach, a mentor, understand your nature, and to suggest, study planner accordingly. And he or she will be giving you, feedback. Not only that, that you will be trained every day in terms of answer writing practices. Ladies and gentlemen, here too you have, that the very, that 12 months program and 24 months program, part of this iconic. Ladies and gentlemen, please use my referral code here to say success to avail maximum 10% discount. Technically speaking, that you end up paying mere 80 to 100 rupees if you calculate in terms of per day basis. It's not even the expenditures, that towards your evening snacks, ladies and gentlemen, but you ensure your career. And also, that increasing the fee structure is also on the card part of Unacademy soon. That please seize this opportunity. That and that the benefit more. As I said, we strongly recommend this iconic. Why? Because great things will take time. You are going to be part of that bureaucracy for next 25 to 30 years of wonderful career that demands minimum your 2 years of devotion. That too part of this iconic program with specialized, personalized coach or mentor for you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way, that I think it is right time, let me take you to the very purpose of our interaction. Yes. What is the very purpose for which, that we are today? Yes. Very well, apart from, sharing grand strategy for scoring more marks in, that the very sociology, especially 450 plus out of 500, it is possible. Why? That's why it is very popular. It's highly scoring because you are in touch with that particular subject. And we spoke in the previous videos, please watch all those rest of the, the videos, the part of this, sociology series, and especially available, Unacademy's YouTube channel. Please, as I told you, right, Success Sampath or Sampath Iruvengidam, you will access. We have discussed everything. Not only that, very well, this subject is all about society. There may be some newcomers. The science of society, study of society, study about relationships, that it's otherwise science of, that social relationship existing among human beings. Not this or that, marital, familial, your relationship, of course, you call kinship, educational, economic, political, religious, even your identity. Ladies and gentlemen, you call, that the caste you belong to, the gender you belong to, the economic ownership, of course, class you belong to, the knowledge you belong to. You can. The criteria may differ. Of course, you talk about your identity. People are stratified in such a way. Social stratification, and also why the society keep on changing culturally, structurally, functionally. So all these things, in the name of, that studying about society, you study about, that system or network of social relationships existing among human beings. Not this or that. Not only that, in the name of, that studying about society, you study about, that even the Max Weber's definition, sociology is nothing but study about interpretative understanding of social action, all your interaction and its outcome. That especially in social situation, you got, special perspective for that also, symbolic interactionism scope. Ladies and gentlemen, so the very core of this, the subject matter called sociology is, that the byproduct otherwise, say objectivity, seeing a particular, that event or any as, that process from multiple aspects, especially two different aspects. Otherwise, it's almost like seeing the two sides of a single coin. You understand the reality? That's what we call objectivity, cultural relativism. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. I think, that you understand better. Not only that, we are talking about, that we introduce everything at the beginning, that, that you can go through and watch all those videos, that no need of, that repeating, that I think, we have to consume more time. And apart from that, that introduction, and we took you, that to the thinker series, because, the very thinkers, when we talk about, that the global sociologists, Karl Marx, Max Weber, Emile Durkheim, Talcott Parson, R.K. Mitten, even George Herbert Mead, So, that cutting across various perspectives you call structural functionalism, conflict school of thought, even symbolic interactionism. We discuss everything. And today, after that, what happened? We started discussing, that Indian social thinkers, Indian sociologists, especially. We already discussed, that G.S. Gurye, Govind Sadasiv Gurye, the part of Indological approach. Today, that today's discussion is centered around Mysore Narsimhacharya Srinivas, M.N. Srinivas, belonging to the school of structural functionalism. And that in future we'll be discussing, that another gentleman, of course, A.R. Desai, representing Marxian tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So in the perspectives, that the various, that the thinkers today, our concentration is on going to be M.N. Srinivas, belonging to the school of structural functionalism. Not only that, that the basic concepts part of sociology we already discussed the previous videos. Please watch them also. You get clarity over the concepts. They're otherwise called foundation of a building blocks, without which we can never understand, perspectives, even thinkers, even to understand a question, the part of the very, that your mains examination, you need the support of or clarity over those basic concepts. Using those or incorporating those keywords, basic concepts, you're going to elaborate, even to understand the perspectives. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. And beyond that, you might be aware very well, the sociology has got its own advantages. You can also parallelly score good marks in SC, especially the paper 1 general studies part of mains, society, social issues, and also you talk about, paper 4 of general studies, ethics, where you got, 130 marks for which case studies, the social problems, otherwise case studies, where the role of sociology is crucial than other social sciences, you will come to know. And even the case of, essay paper, that out of when you analyze 25 years of, question paper, you can group them into 8 domains. One of the domains happen to be society. In GS or essay, you should not reveal your flavor of sociology. Ladies and gentlemen, we are keep on emphasizing this particular point. So where you are supposed to, like, that write like generalist, it is that way. Not only that, the very objectivity, the value neutrality, the byproduct of, the very sociology. You never take sides. You never get influenced. You never become biased. Yes, it is scientific study, systematic study, integrated study. That's what done, on the part of sociology. The report what you get is very precise. That's why most of the, that other, that stakeholders are waiting for this report. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, that all these things ultimately, that, so apart from that, with that particular, that objectivity, value neutrality, you are capable of, that answering, especially in the oral interview, in a balanced manner. You never contradict. You never go against, that established principles or value systems of, that Indian administration. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. But that you understand, that you are trained here in the name of subject matter called sociology. That is the reason the very subject is highly popular and more scoring. That will transform your personality, ladies and gentlemen, and also, that the perspective with which you approach things in the world. I personally benefited out of this and scored very good marks. Even a lot of my students who have become officer benefited out of this. I think you can also join the club of 450 plus out of 500, welcoming you, let me assure you. But it is not, that mere ambition that expects you to participate and perform consistently and practice also. Ladies and gentlemen, when the process is right, you can't escape from the product, well. Nishkama karma. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the thing, that we thought of, introducing you. Of course, that part of this, the very content of, the today's interaction centered around Mysore Narsimhacharya Srinivas, the renowned Indian sociologist, belonging to structural functionalism, of course. That not only that, and his, major contributions, that it has become household, that nomenclatures like Sanskritization, Westernization, dominant caste, even, vote bank politics, what do you call? So the very words, that phraseologies coined by none other than Mysore Narsimhacharya Srinivas, a scholar from Oxford, of course, Indian sociologist, that you might be aware, that even he has been awarded by the President of India, that the Padma Awards, you might be aware. Not only that, the Karnataka administration, that gave, contributed 1 crore to establish a separate chair, that in abroad university, you might be aware. It's honoring M.N. Srinivas that way, you might be aware. And all of his, that papers, research papers, that, he lost because of the fire accident happened. That the very, that the president of USA came to him and, that, of course, that asked sorry. All these things we come to know. Such is the stature on the part of M.N. Srinivas, especially the Indian sociologist. Of course, he is also not free from criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, for all of his country, nobody is free from criticism. Even M.N. Srinivas, that, and also what are all the resources to be consulted. Of course, all of his books are resources. You will come to know. And even The Remembered Village, a classical masterpiece, that even today, as we said, for G.S. Courier, Carsten, that Race in India, for M.N. Srinivas, The Remembered Village, apart from rest of the contributions, the social change, even the Cast 21st Century Avatar, social structure, you might be aware. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, especially on, the Thinker series on the part of sociology, that to Indian sociologists. After discussing G.S. Courier, today our focus is going to be on M.N. Srinivas of structural functionalism. Welcome you once again, ladies and gentlemen. You can also type all your questions, then and there. We'll be happy to take on, that your questions. I think, let me take you inside. Of course, yes, you have been given brief introduction about sociology. No need of, that speaking again, that yes. And how, the today's interaction, the relevant to your UPSC Civil Service Examination preparation, especially main examination, especially for optional subject called the highly scoring popular subject called sociology. If you ask me, this is the way. Your paper 2 syllabus, what theories, thinkers, the global thinkers portion you come to know, if you apply in Indian context, that's what your paper 2. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand? So when you write paper 1, you're supposed to write global thinkers and perspectives, and also, that the case studies, global case studies, whereas Indian, the paper 2, when you talk about Indian society, you have to write, that discuss from Indian sociologists' perspective, especially Indology of, G.S. Courier. We already deal structural functionalism of M.N. Srinivas, even Marxian sociology of A.R. Desai. And not only that, Indian case studies. It is that way. You will come to know, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we are relevant. This is part of the syllabus, paper 2. The first unit talks about it, that now we are here. Ladies and gentlemen, and also to be more precise, you should know what is the context, how the questions are asked. Okay, sir, all stories, okay, that thing, this thing, what he, gave the perspective, what's his contribution, criticism. In what way the questions are asked. Of course, you should be focused. You should be result-oriented preparation. That it's not wasting time and energy. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand how the questions are framed there, asked there, so that you prepare, you tune your preparation accordingly. It's not preparing and seeing the question, it's not wasting that way. I want you to begin the day with question solving. Even in the general studies discussion, we used to emphasize, as far as UPSC Civil Service Examination mains optional concern, we expect you to sit with your syllabus. For every word available, sit with the dictionary, William P. Scott, Oxford or Penguin Dictionary, work on that, understand the concepts, then go through previous questions, then only you can link. And also even the perspectives, that you see, how they are framed. Nowadays the trend is totally different. It's not asking, only one thinker and based on that the questions, asking you to, that compare 2 to 3 thinkers of same, that the perspective over a particular, the contribution. That way the trend is going on, that takes you to so that's what UPSC. The increasing complexity, the progressive complexity is the core principle of UPSC. It's not blaming the game. You be prepared to face any eventuality. We expect you to solve every day 2 questions. One from, paper 1 of sociology, another one, from paper 2 of sociology. Just take previous year questions, that even in my, that social networks, you reach Success Sampath, Iruvengidam. I put everyday question, just watch that, try to answer, try to form at least synopsis. After that, you start working on that. Then you consult all the resources we recommend. It becomes result oriented. You are directed because you know what is the question. Your preparation, that it is in congruence with the question. You stay with the question. That to original previous year questions are getting repeated. Even the GS areas getting repeated, but here same questions are getting repeated. You will come to know, ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So when that is the scenario, question practice every day. So this is how, so that your preparation is letter and spirit focused, result oriented. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way, right? It's not a quantity, it's a quality. That's what life. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you understand, apply that principle here. So the questions asked, the previous questions I'm trying to connect here, write a critique of the structural functionalism perspective used by M.N. Srinivas in understanding Indian society. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the question. And another question, of course, write a short note on M.N. Srinivas concepts, especially Westernization, Sanskritization. His contribution in terms of the caste system, dominant caste, even vote bank politics, you might be aware. That everything. There's a German, not only that, everything, even modernization, he relates, and how he is getting criticized by other social thinkers, how he is different from Louis Dumont, how he is different from Indological perspectives of, G.S. Gurye. Why, that Yogendra Singh also, criticizing his Sanskritization is nothing but the universal specific case of anticipatory socialization. A lot of things you come to know. The very structural functionalism, a major, perspective in sociology. Of course, here he is applying in terms of microscopic level. That's also criticism against M.N. Srinivas. He did not travel the path of American structural functionalism school, especially headed by Talcott Parson or R.K. Merton, even the Kingsley Davis, that representation there. Rather, he took the path of, that British anthropologists, Radcliffe Brown, Malinowski. That's what we are going to discuss. And rather, that the American sociologists, well known, especially structural functionalist, sociologists, well known for, proposing grand theory of social system, you might be aware. But whereas, that here he applied, that this is called field study. It's not like, the textbook view of, that Indological approach of G.S. Gurye, but, it is direct observation by M.N. Srinivas, where he took into account, village studies. Not, that like Louis Dumont based on caste, but, he took into account village-based studies. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about direct observation, field specific, the field work, not textbook view of G.S. Gurye as done in Indological approach. So you get, that reality, where he is making, that the Coots, that society, especially the tribals, of course, based on that, and connecting with the value system, institution, the microscopic level. But that's a criticism. It cannot be, that applied to, that the macro level. And he treats, the very village almost like Mahatma Gandhi, that the basic unit of society, Indian society. And also, that the very view that, based on the colonial view, you might be aware. Even that the English colonial view, that's from, the William Jones we are talking about for Indology. But here all colonialists gathered information in such a way, especially to exploit, the Indian society, you might be aware. But of course, their opinion about, the very village was, that timeless, unchanging, like. But, that M.N. Srinivas was completely differing from their point of view, saying that no, it is keep on undergoing change. The Indian villages are dynamic in character. And also he recognizes a structure, interrelated parts, making the system, and also properly functioning, and its consequences in reinforcing social order. It is that way, that I'm just briefing, ladies and gentlemen. So, and also in the name of, Sanskritization, it's the cultural change, especially Sanskritization or Westernization, change in terms of way of life, style of life, not giving, structural change, like change in terms of institutions, what you call in modernization. But Sanskritization, according to M.N. Srinivas, I'm just briefing. We are going to elaborate with so much of, that the nomenclature statements, no worry at all. Let me brief here. It's lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people, so that they will be, given treated, with dignity, honor by upper caste. That is what his view. Sanskrit happened to be the language of upper caste. But it was otherwise called, the Brahmanization. But, Sanskritization as a concept is broader than Brahmanization. Because in some cases, upper caste, it need not be upper caste people, maybe non-Brahmins, Kshatriya, some places, the very Dalits. It's called de-Sanskritization there. Say, for example, the Kashmiri Pandit, Punjab, the Sikhs, that they got influenced by Islam culture. It is Islamization. In some places, tribalization. So Sanskritization is broader than mere Brahmanization. So in spite of that, M.N. Srinivas, that criticized that, he upholds, that the upper caste value system, like that you will come to know. Westernization is also, the change in value system, the rationalization, humanism spirit that, that we ape from West. But we come to know because of 150 years of rule of the British administration in India. But there we are also going to, that divide primary Westernization, secondary Westernization, tertiary Westernization, like. But this Westernization also led to modernization. That's according to, Yogendra Singh. So these are just I'm briefing. You have some ideas so that you understand the question. It is that way. So how M.N. Srinivas was trying to understand Indian society, especially using the perspective called structural functionalism. Structural functionalism looks at society as if a system which has got order. which has got solidarity, which has got cohesion. And all subsystems, say all institutions or all parts are interrelated in such a way so as to ensure the survival of the system. It's almost like biology. Herbert Spencer's, the Charles Darwin's, the organic analogy, no doubt at all. Parts contribution to the whole in reinforcing social order from that particular perspective. I think you got some basis information. Answering part is different, ladies and gentlemen. So this the previous year questions I'm just showing you. I think we got our relevance now. Today's, the bone of contention, the interaction based on the content, it's completely based on previous questions. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand it's not only part of the syllabus, and you have seen questions also. Now you are directed. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is right time. Let me take you. I told you many times, in every thinker's portion, this is my style too. That benefits you. Only when you understand, that the historical roots, you will understand, you will appreciate the ideas. Otherwise, your clarity over ideas or contributions of those thinkers, becoming fantastic. Otherwise, let me put this way: you have to understand the root. Try to establish the connectivity. That if you want to fare well in the future, that you understand the past. Try to connect the dots of the past. It's of course only when you understand the root of M.N. Srinivas, probably contributions can be interlinked, understood in a proper way. I think it is right time. Let me take you to the biography of Mysore Narasimhacharya. That of course Narasimhachar Srinivas. Of course recently 1999. That he was no more, passed away. Of course, that well-renowned sociologist, Indian sociologist. Of course, he is student of G.S. Ghurye, no doubt. G.S. Ghurye is said to be the founding father of Indian sociology, and that he guided that the research works of all these things. And prior to that, you might be aware, he also that when G.S. Ghurye received PhD from Cambridge University, of course our M.N. Srinivas received from Oxford University. You come to know not only that, he worked in different institutions, reputed institutions in India, disseminating his knowledge. That's why all of his contributions became household phrases, name. Ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to that M.N. Srinivas, that belonging to the school of structural functionalism, the well-renowned Indian sociologist, as well as that social anthropologist. Because that anthropology subject matter gave him the structural functionalism, direct observation, the field specific, that study. Of course, that you have to understand. He's mostly known for his work on caste and caste systems. Of course, very well caste, one of the forms of social stratification. Even the G.S. Ghurye, we spoke about 6 characteristics of caste system. That the very caste system, you might be aware, it has got the hereditary occupation, hierarchy, taboo, social distance, based on purity, pollution, accordingly privileges, disprivileges. Yes, it is that way, that, and especially, his contribution over a dominant caste. And we will be discussing, that when we discuss the caste, we have to, that bring all those people, Louis Dumont, along with, M.N. Srinivas, Andre Beatle, everybody. But now our focus is restricted to structural functionalism, as well as, some more concepts addressing the very cultural change of the society. The change in society could be structural, cultural, functional, but cultural change is addressed by Sanskritization and Westernization. Ladies and gentlemen, so the caste, that the social stratification, of course, that social stratification, it's a process of making layering in the society. You are well aware. The criteria may differ from place to place, time to time. Of course, here the caste system, one of the forms of social stratification, the people are stratified on the basis of purity and pollution notion. By birth, you are said to be pure or impure. The ancient India Manu version and associated, that historical recorrection through constitution, reservation, and even the caste. That's why, M.N. Srinivas says, caste has gone to the root level. In India, the predominant way of life is, that ruralized, 65% of the population, and agricultural dependent life. That. So, as I told you, right, G.S. Ghurye's statement also where we made already. Industries create class, that soils create caste. The predominant ruralness character. That's why the caste system and associated judgment system, you might be aware. So the caste is survived in such a way, in spite of that advancement in technology, transportation, communication, the various revolutions in various parts of technology, you might be aware. In spite of that, the caste is surviving. So, but he says it has got 21st century avatar. How the caste is related to polity. Even Rajni Kothari emphasizing that point, you might be aware. So otherwise, the social stratification, the process, Sanskritization and Westernization in southern India, that. So and not only that, the concept of dominant caste. A particular caste is said to be dominant in a particular locality, and maybe it's because of its numerical strength or its affordability, economic affluence, and also that in the hierarchy, top position, and their accessibility towards the political affairs, and also abroad, access to higher education. They are capable of dominating the spheres. And here also the dominant caste, the concept is changing. Even the Sanskritization, it's not lower caste imitating upper caste, and lower caste, they themselves, because of the constitutional provisions, reservations, National Commission on SC/ST, and even that you might be aware, various provisions with which even the reservation on the part of Panchayat Raj institutions, that they are into collective bargaining, the protest movements, the Dalit movements especially want to establish their assertion. So where that goes against the spirit of Sanskritization. Why should I copy? Let me be myself. Let me preserve my identity. Let me command. Let me avail all the benefits from government of India. That is the notion also. So we are talking about Westernization. It's vaping the West. So when we are the dominant caste theory we are talking about, there sometimes Dalits dominating in a particular locality, you might be aware. So that's why I'm trying to link the whole India can be redrawn in terms of the dominant caste. That you might be aware. It is that way. Even Louis Dumont joining the very contribution of that very M.N. Srinivas, you might be aware. It is that way. So M.N. Srinivas was a renowned sociologist from Mysore who made vote bank. These are all the household phraseologies. We are keep on emphasizing the vote bank politics, dominant caste, Sanskritization, Westernization, everything, all phrases. If at all you are talking, the credit goes to none other than of course, the gentleman, of course, the renowned Indian sociologist and social anthropologist, of course, Mysore Narasimhachar Srinivas, ladies and gentlemen. And also the Karnataka government, that once deciding to grant, 1 crore, especially the University of Oxford, that the UK, for a chair in anthropology. You just imagine. So in the birth centenary of, the world-renowned sociologist, M.N. Srinivas, you just see how he made difference in the world of social sciences, especially sociology, the impact, that in enriching our understanding about, that Indian societies. You just see how he has been reciprocated in such way. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, you have to understand, the importance. And M.N. Srinivas also earned his doctorate in sociology from University of Bombay, later named as University of Mumbai, you might be aware. And went on, that to the University of, Oxford, all those things, we are talking about. And he has already written a book, that on family, marriage in Mysore, and completed PhD. These are all the base information at University of Bombay. Before he went, that Oxford we are talking about, the 40s, that these are all associated concepts, that we give you, that his training, that there, especially in Oxford, that has played a significant role in the development of his ideas. So the credit goes to, of course, it's not maligning our institution. You understand that way, ladies and gentlemen. So Srinivas taught in various institutions, reputed institutions like University of Delhi, Maharaja. As we spoke, G.S. Guri, Professor Emeritus, the same way we are talking about Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, Baroda, and Institute for Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, a National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. Of course, his contribution, that you understand, his contribution to the disciplines of sociology and social anthropology and to public life in India is unique. That's what we say, that the household, the phraseologies, vote bank politics or dominant caste, Sanskritization, Westernization, all those things we are talking about. It was his capacity to break out of the strong mold in which mostly North American university oriented. You might be aware how, the Talcott Parson, R.K. Metten, the way with which they handle the macro level by contributing grand theories, part of, structural functionalism. But he broke from the tradition. Even, that he did not support, that the very views promoted by the Ford Foundation India when they were trying to establish Indian sociology as a science, that he did not, favor that view also. You will come to know. It's that way. So studies had been, shaped after the end of the World War on the one hand, and to experiment with disciplinary grounding of social anthropology and sociology on the other, which marked his, originality as a social. It is breakaway from, that particular American tradition of grand theories and to focus on micro level, microcosm, The village as a microcosm. That's what his statement. The basic unit, as in the line of Mahatma Gandhi, you know well. Mahatma Gandhi also said India lives in villages, you might be aware. But Louis Dumont took, that the caste as the basis for, that this structural functional study. He took that way. It is that way you understand. So he was awarded and honored by the very University of Bombay and Government of France, Royal Anthropological Institute, and several awards, that on his hand, very well. He has been much appreciated Indian sociologist, you might be aware, and Padma Bhushan Award, that from our President of India, of course, the Indian Padma Awards. Not only that, he was also seen as one of the foreign members, the foreigner members, especially the British Academy and American Academy of Arts and Science. You just imagine it is that way, such is the stature. And he stated that, that all these things, what you're writing, to make you understand, not to write in the examination. Wherever some possible, maybe 1 or 2 lines you can write, it is not directly related to your mains written examination, but to make you understand the rest of the concept, what I'm going to discuss, you need this basis. Because all ideas are rooted in the historical, the reality, you might be aware. So that's the very basis we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So he stated that old economic social relationships, the characteristic of the caste system had broken down, but the caste had, the first post, especially the article, it has mentioned very clearly about him, especially, that when we are talking about the establishment of chair in Oxford University. So, but the caste had survived as means for securing access to the resources of different kinds. Even today, the very identity politics, what we are talking about, appealing the voting behavior of the masses in the name of caste. People are very specific about subcaste also, right? You see the matrimonial column, you will see they are not ready to compromise. It is that way things are happening, and not only that, how the identity politics, not, the caste, language, religion, race, region. So the caste plays crucial role because of Indian, the ruralized nature. Of course, the village based. Of course, 65% of the population, agriculture dependent population, and associated judgment system. Even today, you witness the urban people got settled in the urban areas. When they go back to their villages, and the traditional, the areas for all of their, religious functions. But caste enjoys religious sanctity also. You will come to know. That's why the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, there would be pollution-based notion, you might be aware, that enjoys religious, that has got religious connection. Indian society, Hindu society in majoritarian sense. But governance sense, of course, unity and diversity, you take into account minorities also. But, if you speak this way, the Hindu social organization, Hindu society, the Indian society, it is that way, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. So it's securing access to, to resources of different kinds. Even today, the very survival. Why? In some cases, dominant. That's why the dominant caste we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. And all of these, the contributions under different titles, of course, you come to know the marriage and family in Mysore, 1942, religion and society among cooks of South India, that were structural functionalism we are talking about. And, that Oxford, India, that the Srinivas, especially the India's villages, and of course, the caste in modern India and other essays, social change in modern India, and also the caste 21st century avatar, one more book. And this is all of his writings, that this remembered village, a monumental work by M.N. Srinivas. And also, that the social structure, all these contributions, you just see all of his contributions under different titles, you come to know. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, you understood something, that a biography, fantastic. I think it is the right time for us to take you to structural functionalism. Yes. What is structural functionalism? Come on, think over it, tell me. The structural and functional perspective. Structural functionalism is one of the major perspectives in sociology. We already explained in the beginning itself, well. This particular perspective used by, a very M.N. Srinivas has been influenced by British social anthropology, pioneered especially by Radcliffe Brown and Malthus. I told you, so he never, that when in the then took the sides of, the American tradition. Rather, he took British tradition. Radcliffe Brown, the structuralist, and Malthus, well known for needs theory, you might be aware. He traveled that particular path. And also the structural functionalism perspective relies more on field work. It's not like bookish textbook view of or Sanskrit textbook based Indological approach of GS Guri. Not like that, but field specific approach, field work based, direct observation to understand the ground reality, to understand about Indian society. It is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about here. So for understanding the social reality so that it can also be understood as contextual, field specific, contextual or field view perspective of social phenomena. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand this way? And not only that, the structural functional approach to Indian sociology to a mature stage, from the stage of infancy, and gave indigenous perspective. Even the case of Indology also we spoke that way. Whatever may be, Indological, it's a more Indian centric or complete, that upholding upper caste view like. And here the GS Gurye became ideological than sociology. We criticized that way. Instead of that, Indological view became a basis for the rest of the perspectives in Indian sociology. Same way. So this M.N. Srinivas, especially through his contributions under banner structural functionalism perspective, he took Indian sociology from infancy stage to mature stage. You have to appreciate, you have to understand that. It's that way, that, and gave it, that indigenous, local color, local flavor, indigenous perspective. You understand, na? By case studies, all those case studies, the Mysore, Rampura village, wherever he talks, it is that way. Understand, it is that way, that. So it's not, that looking at very sociology only from the perspective of the major or global thinkers. You got Indian contribution, established Indian renowned sociologists too, that where, of course, we appreciate our M.N. Srinivas here. Not only that, structural functionalism is closely related to the structural functional approach of anthropology. That anthropology, you might be aware, sociology and anthropology one and the same, but both making study over society. Anthropology, of course, their bone of contention, their focus is on primitive society, how human beings originated on the surface of the earth. You might be aware, the culture emphasis, all this. But whereas sociology, that is making study over modern society. It's contemporary. You have to understand. That's why you are in touch. That's why it became popular. That's why it's highly scoring, because you are part of the society. Society is in you. Whatever I speak, I'm not speaking anything new. You know everything already. I'm just, that giving quantification, otherwise formalization of your understanding or documenting your understanding. I just, supply nomenclature so that you connect with your understanding. Otherwise, I bring all your understandings under different categories in the name of perspectives. That's all. I don't do anything new. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand. My role is to connect your understanding with nomenclatures or syllabus of UPSC. That's all. Nothing more than that. I'm not doing great job and all. I'm doing very humble job. But you are going to, that make it very great by understanding, by, referring more, that material and delivering the examination and becoming doctor and going to serve the nation. You are going to be great with this humble, that attempt or humble efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So sociological functionalism is closely related to structural functional approach of anthropology. You understand? Closely related subject, which tries to explain the anthropology, that various social forms found in tribal society. Anthropo, tribal, primitive people, connected, over. If you understood the spirit, no need of memorizing. You will simply, that connect the things. It is that way. So in terms of contributions to social cohesion, yes, the various social forms, various elements, various entities part of tribal society, in what way they contribute for the social cohesion, social solidarity, social equilibrium, social integration, stability, social cooperation, all are with same spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. And in ensuring the survival of the system, otherwise, parts contribution to the whole. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So you understand the spirit, structural functionalism, especially in tribal society, from anthropology. The important followers of this perspective, that you might be aware. So the not only M.N. Srinivas, we are discussing, S.C. Dubey and Makim Marriott, I.P. Desai, and also, that the M.N. D.N. Majumdar we are talking about. So, that the structural functionalism we are talking about, it's not only, that we are discussing M.N. Srinivas here, there are other sociologists joining here. S.C. Dubey, Makim Marriott, that little tradition, great tradition, Milton Singer, Makim Marriott, we are going to discuss, I.P. Desai, we are going to discuss all these people. That again, we are going to incorporate them, you might be aware. So this is structural functionalism with M.N. Srinivas and the rest of the people, other sociologists also. Of course, the structural functionalism, derived from anthropology, especially the tribal studies, so as to ensure social solidarity in tribal society. You might be aware. So the followers of this particular perspective focus on understanding of ordering, patterning of the social world. You understand? Once again, stability. Once again, order. Once again, cooperation. Once again, equilibrium. Once again, social integration. So focus on the understanding of ordering. How do you bring social order? How do you bring social pattern, the social world? Their focus, that of attention mainly the problem of order at the societal level. They are preoccupied with the notion because structural functionalism is all about they treat society as a system as if which has got order. Anything which promotes order called functional to that particular society. Anything that weakens the already existing social order or destroys the fabric of social order, as you speak, that the situation is ripe for 356, Article 356, imposition of 356, deterioration of law and order, that way. So when anything, that destroys already existing, the fabric of social order, they could be called dysfunctional to the society. All social issues are dysfunctional to the society. Poverty, illiteracy, unemployment, gender injustice, transgender injustice, widening social inequality, child labor, drug addiction, alcoholism, and centrifugal tendencies, northeastern insurgency, and religious fundamentalism, forced religious conversion, even majoritarianism, exploitation all around, ideological extremism, Naxalism, like, why not? Ladies and gentlemen, all social issues I'm talking about, that of course they are all called dysfunctional to the society because they go against the very spirit of national integration that affects peace of the nation. It might be that's why they are called dysfunctional. When it is promoting peace, but you should not say peace and all here. This is that subject matter called sociology. Here you have to use these nomenclatures: social order, social integration, social stability, social solidarity, and so ordering, pattern, social equilibrium. Ladies and gentlemen, that way. So this structural functionalists, they preoccupied with the notion of order. It is that way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, structural functionalism. Of course, they're theoretical and empirical. It's not only discussing theories; they also go for verification, empiricism, show me proof attitude. It's applying the methods of natural sciences. There comes, that it is scientific also, have generally been based on assumption that societies can be persistent, cohesive, stable, generally inherited the wholes, differentiated by their culture and social, the structural arrangements. The point is, that it is whatever may be the change, but it may be from static to dynamic, but in spite of that, in spite of all those dynamism also, again ensuring change or even value consensus, if you speak in terms of Talcott Parsons, or solidarity, if you speak in terms of Emile Durkheim. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So they are very persistent. It is that way, persistent, cohesive, stable, and generally they have inherited the wholes, differentiated by their culture. See, that there may be some differences, but in spite of that, that they ensure stability, social order, and even the social structural arrangements. They readjust, that in such a way so as to reinforce order once again. Maybe, where you see persistency, continuity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. Otherwise, if you want to question the very structural functionalism, you pose this way. That I've copied from various, that net sources also. There's nothing wrong, that, yatha yathaya dharmasya. That of course, Bhagavad Gita's essence. Today you have stolen from here, and it will be stolen by someone else later. So it's all circulating. How did various institutions or customs, how they originated? How does it, that fill the broader context? Otherwise, you otherwise, justify the presence of that particular entity. In what way it promotes social order, or otherwise in what way it weakens the social order. It is that way. How does the part relates to the world? The part's relation to the world to ensure the stability. So all these questions ultimately, once again, reinforcing the very spirit of structural functionalism. Ladies and gentlemen, let me come back. The very immense Srinivas inspiration, of course, that the British social anthropologist we are calling Radcliffe Brown or Malinowski. Radcliffe Brown, of course, the structuralist, you might be aware. The total, it is a statement about structural functionalism, you might be aware. The total social structure of the society. What do you mean by social structure? At the micro level, it is called as interrelationship between roles and statuses. At the macro level, there may be interrelationship existing among all social institutions. When you say society, you got various subsystems. We spoke already. Ladies and gentlemen, when this is marriage, this is family, and this is kinship, and this is education institution. These are not otherwise called various aspects of society. Economic institutions you call. Then you talk about political institutions. Then you talk about religious institutions. Then you go for social studies. All are interrelated, and each and every institution its own connectivity with the society on the whole. So the interdependency, that there you talk about it is structure. You talk about the pattern or configuration, one depending on another. So without marriage, you can't establish family. And also people, that entering into marriage coming from family. And relationships, only from this way. Maybe blood, maybe a final by marriage. And also, education institution. For that, you need money. And also, you got your faith system. And of course, that you decide who should be in power. And your identity, all are interrelated, ladies and gentlemen. So the total social structure of the society together with the totality of social usages. What do you mean by social usages? Usages maybe, maybe culture or social values, social norms, maybe in terms of kinship, the pattern reinforcing, that once again the relationship, order, the social usages, what even sanctions, even the control mechanism, formal, informal. So, the totality of social usages constituted the functional unity, in ensuring order, ensuring stability in the society, a condition in which all parts work together in coordination. Parts are interrelated with a sufficient degree of harmony. It is not disharmony, it's not accommodation, with harmony, with proper coordination, the congruence, compatibility. You take into account it is that way. See our internal consistency. It is not inconsistent. That is without producing. See, without producing or persisting conflicts, without producing conflicts, which can neither be, that it's not, that, so they ensure social order, otherwise they are not generating conflicts that can never be, neither be resolved or nor regulated. It's not like that. So all these, every society with social structure and which has got associated social usages, and that how they constitute in turn ultimately functional unity and bringing social order, supporting social order, and all these parts are working in harmonious way or with consistency, internal consistency. It's not generating a conflict that could be neither resolved or nor regulated. Got the idea, ladies and gentlemen? So this is structural functionalism, that a view from anthropological world, especially by Radcliffe Brown. Of course our Yemen Srinivas completely understood the spirit of this tradition. To explain any belief, rule, custom, institution demanded an analysis which linked the elements functionally with the structure of the culture, with the structure of the culture as a system. See, the point is, whatever may be the element of culture you're talking about, it may be belief, faith, idea, custom, even the very social institutions to fulfill the social needs of particular kind. All are, all elements are functionally, that linked with, the elements functionally with the structure. When you talk about society as a system, well, the formula we gave you, society, if you treat as a system which has got its own structure, has got its own function. The structure, interrelationship between statuses and roles at the micro level, interrelationship between the institutions at the macro level. It talks about static aspect, the structure in its function, the dynamism, the presence of all these elements, the structures in its functioning, its social consequences, when it is promoting social order that ensures the survival of the system called society. It is that way. So all the elements part of the culture, that you talk about, that say these elements functionally, you got the point, na? They've got their own linkages functionally with the structure, functionally related. How? By promoting social order. That's why they are functional. If they are weakening already existing social order, they could be called dysfunctional to that particular society. Ladies and gentlemen, that way we are talking about. So this perspective of society stresses the element of harmony and consistency. It's harmonious, that order, consistent order, even persistent order, not those of conflict and contradictions, as we witnessed with, the Karl Marx version of society. According to Karl Marx, history of hitherto all existing society full of struggle between that haves and have-nots. That's what you have witnessed now. But here the structural functionalism is also called, because of this notion, criticize conservatism, because you always see in terms of order. But the very conflict school of thought, they always look at society in terms of struggle, conflict, contradiction, exploitation, simmering discontent that demands, revolutionary change towards, establishment of classless communist society. But here, society as a system, as which has got order. Anything which promotes order, functional. Anything which weakens already existing social order, dysfunctional, over. We don't have, place for conflict, contradiction. That is also criticism. How come you can say? Both cooperation and conflict, hallmarks of society. Just take, for example, in your relationship, whether it is friends or family members, or maybe even in the organization, it's not always smooth. It's not always, straight line, ups and downs. Sometimes cooperation, sometimes conflict. Sometimes you accommodate, sometimes you integrate. How come you can say only one side of the coin? That's a criticism against structural functionalism also. These guys are highly, the conservative. They never accept change. They don't address even conflict on the part of society. That's also correct also. If from criticism angle, you come to know. But whatever may be, what's the spirit of structural functionalism? You are well aware. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you the right time. Yes. The functional unity of the system is defined in terms of social order. Functional unity, you don't say functional unity, otherwise you say social order, social solidarity, social integration, social cohesion, because society with social order, social stability, social equilibrium, even we say. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So in defining society in holistic terms, structural functional, that perspective implies that as everything within the system is necessarily functional. So they also take it for granted. In a holistic term, all parts present in the system are always promoting social. They are functional. Too much optimistic view also, right? There could be some elements, disrupting the order. Well, that's what system is all about. No society is free from issues. No individual is free from issues. No product is free from issues. Same way, but their view, the structural functionalism view, is that in such a way they look at things this way. That with social order, always, that way we are talking about that way, ladies and gentlemen. So society is relatively persisting configuration, again structure of elements, and consensus is that ubiquitous element everywhere. So there is a consensus, that among the elements, so as to ensure the structure, the pattern, the configuration, that to persisting pattern, persistent configuration, that ensure the survival of the system. Consensus among various elements to promote that, system or systemic perspective, to promote that social order, to ensure the pattern, to ensure the order, to ensure, configuration. You understand? It's that way. See, the spirit is same. You see the very manifestation of the very spirit in variety of statements I'm trying, ladies and gentlemen, because that you have to write. If you're going to write, that say 150 words and all, how you will write? Even 300 words, how you will write? That of course. So it treats changes as slow cumulative process of adjustment to a new situation. That. So there comes question against this structural functionalism. Do you mean to say there is no change in the world? Karl Marx says change is permanent. Of course, you are moving from level 1 to level 2. They won't say change. From static to dynamic. Even the very system will restructure in such a way to accommodate the changes. As the Hinduism accommodated the very, the birth of Jainism and Buddhism, they went out of the heterodox religions. It could adjust itself. Right? It's that way. It's that way. So I think I told you already. In Shaivism, Hinduism, of course, don't say why I'm talking, because very well you are in touch. In Shaivism, the sponsorship called Upayadar, Upayam, like. But whereas in Vaishnavites, that they call Kaingaryam. Spirit is same. If as astronaut, cosmonaut. Different nomenclatures. Same is the thing, that we are talking about. They are not ready to, that use the phraseology called change, but they say, that they treats change as, but it is very slow. It's not radical change as recommended by conflict school. It's a very slow, gradual change, and also accumulation, the cumulative process of adjustment to the new situation. Probably you will come to know from static to dynamic, but they won't say change. Is that way, ladies and gentlemen? You come to know, I think it's, let me take you to the next level. Its explanation consists essentially of pointing out how different types of activity fit, that on the top of one another. That it is that way, how the coordination is achieved. You put this way, its explanation consists essentially of pointing out how different types of activity fit on top of one another and are consistent with one another, and how conflicts are contained. Even there may be some, that conflicts may be surfacing, but they are contained, as we try to contain, China, the South China Sea. Ladies and gentlemen, with the support of, quadrilateral. Where for that purpose, from the Asia Pacific region, we bring, the very United States of America. For that, we are also accused that we are aligning the strategic alignment with, the USA also, though India refusing that. We don't align with anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, so even some conflicting elements are contained within this, structural functionalism school. Why? It's because of, that proper coordination existing among, various elements, the consistency. Ladies and gentlemen, that way, so contain and prevent it from the changing the structure. They never allow that, the structure to undergo change. They reinforce the tradition once again. They persist the tradition. It is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, so structural functionalism is brought into sociology, that we are talking about, by borrowing the concepts of biological sciences. Because, in biology also you say organic analogy, that from Origin of Species, Charles Darwin, to Herbert Spencer, social Darwinist, we are talking about society moving from simple to complex. From cells combining together tissues combining together organs combining together subsystem. When all subsystems are properly coordinated, you ensure the survival of the whole system. That way, you see, the very spirit, of structural functionalism from the world of biology. That's why we are called, the social Darwinist here. It is that way. So the structure in organic analogy, you might be aware, the Herbert Spencer. Structure in biology refers to organisms, meaning a relatively stable arrangement of relationship patterns. Of course, you see, between different cells and consequences of the activity of various organs in the life process of the organism of the function. You understood the spirit, no need of repeating. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Let me take you to the next level. It is that way. We are talking about, so Evans Pritchard, another structuralist. Evans Pritchard describes social structure in terms of persistent social groups, and Ratcliffe Brown, indicates that social structure is based on network of relationship, persons to person, that at the level of individual, but this is at the level of group. So the structure, the persistent structure in terms of social groups, maybe primary, secondary, tertiary, very well. That's according to the structuralist called Evans Pritchard. But whereas this structuralist, Ratcliffe Brown, part of social anthropology, says the social structure is based on the network of relationships existing, from one individual to another individual through genealogical connection. You are programmed in such a way. You are gregarious in such a way. You are tamed in such a way you never question the authority. Your submissiveness in the family, your obedience in the family, you never question authority. But we are all totally different. I think I'm, that I think you also, that I believe that, you are obedient in front of elders, that your family members, where you have, your heart. But when you come out, you use your brain. You have zero, the tolerance towards injustice, but you know how to achieve that. Establish social justice in the, the society, but it's not violent way. You got your own mechanism, the smartness. Ladies and gentlemen, that we were talking. You're genealogically, the connections, of course, the structure in terms of relationship between person to person. But of course, you call, that, but, that Evans Pritchard spoke in terms of social groups, the very structure, the difference between among structuralists, you got differences also. The reason, that this particular statement of M.N. Srinivas about, structural functionalism, formal words, because you spoke about Ratcliffe Brown, why not about, M.N. Srinivas, structural functionalism, the very words, it's not by hearting. Understand the spirit, you are capable of generating. But to make you understand, I have to show the masterpiece, no other goal, ladies and gentlemen. So in the recent British social anthropology, the two important concepts say structure and function. The very words of M.N. Srinivas, 1960. I'm saying structure and function imply that every society is a whole and that its various parts are interrelated. In other words, various groups and categories which are part of the society are related to each other. So is it not talking about interdependence or relationship existing among various social entities, ensuring structure, the structure in its functioning, a system, structural functionalism over system. Society as a system which is equal to structure plus function. Structure in its functioning, the structure, the presence of the structure, static aspect, the structure in its functioning, this is dynamic aspect, the structure in its functioning, a system is born, that system is otherwise called society. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what structural functionalism, anything which promotes this, that the very order in the society, social integration in the society could be called functional. Anything that weakens, that already existing social order could be called dysfunctional. That's all. Nothing more than that. The spirit is very simple, but we are doing. I'm running movie. That is what you are going to do in the examination in different manifestations of the same spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. That, ladies and gentlemen. I think let me take you. Yes. So you understood about structural functionalism. Finally, we'll come back to that the very criticism against that the very structural functionalism. That Sanskritization. Not only structural functionalism, he addressed, that he understood the change in society. Yes, just now he said he belongs to structural functionalism, not ready to accept the word called change. Yes, when you talk about, social change, you can never talk about social change without the support of the concepts called, Sanskritization, Westernization, modernization. Sanskritization, Westernization, both are called as addressing the change in culture, whereas modernization addressing change in structure. So when you try to understand social change, you need all these pillar concepts. Of course, there comes the role of M. N. Srinivas, who contributed with the household phraseologies like vote bank politics, dominant caste, you might be aware. Is that way, ladies and gentlemen? So the discussion, of course, that about Sanskritization, this is according to M. N. Srinivas, his original words. Sanskritization is a process by which lower caste or tribe or any other group changes its customs, undergoes alteration. The changes its custom, rituals, ideology, and way of life, of course, culture, in the direction of higher or more often twice born caste. The caste system, Brahmana, we have already seen, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, we are talking about. So, except Shudra, that all these, they are said to be twice born. They are only allowed to wear sacred thread. Otherwise, Brahmins, you would have heard the investiture ceremony. They are initiated to the very brahmacharin. Of course, brahmacharin, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasin. A Hindu social organization, every individual has to undergo these 4 stages of life. The initiation to student stage, the brahmacharya, the investiture ceremony. In Tamil, it's called Avaniyavitam. So people wear sacred thread. In Tamil, they are called Poonul. Brahmin family, they are aware. You can ask me, sir, what about the non-Brahmins? Do you think they, on the day of, that marriages, Vaishyas, they have got, the sacred thread. But Kshatriya, on the day of marriage, that the pakam podungo, on the pakam podungo, that the marriage, that you will be, that asked, you know all those things, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. You would have witnessed somewhere, whatever may be, under caste system, all these 3 people are considered twice born, not Shudras. So happen to be lower caste imitating the lifestyles of upper caste, especially whose language happen to be Sanskrit. But Sanskritization as a term is broader than another term called Brahmanization. Not simply Brahmins, sometimes Kshatriyas, sometimes Vaishyas, sometimes Muslims, as you witness the Punjab, sometimes tribal, sometimes Dalits. That's called desanskritization. That's what we spoke, ladies and gentlemen. So the concept of Sanskritization was first introduced by that none other than our M. N. Srinivas, the famous Indian sociologist. He explained the concept of Sanskritization in his book. You can ask where he explained with reference to the context. Of course, that you talk about ERC, the religion and society among the Kurks of South India, where he that gave this the contribution, the phraseology, Sanskritization, the concept called Sanskritization, to describe the cultural mobility, the change in terms of culture, the mobility not in terms of structure. See, when lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people, the next day they may not be declared as upper caste people. Ladies and gentlemen, that offers only positional change, cultural change. Probably in the eyes of upper caste people, they will be respected. honored, that's all. Not immediately altogether it gives you structural change or that you could be declared. It's not giving you mobility, structural mobility, rather cultural mobility. They're very happy to sit with you, treat you, allow inside you. These are all the things happening. Why should they? That's totally different. This is within the caste system, a phenomenon, a process, of course, witnessed by M. N. Srinivas, especially the religion and society among the Kurks of South India, where he gave this concept, of course, to describe. It offers only cultural mobility, not structural mobility in the traditional caste structure. Probably you may be valued high. Even very Hinduism, it's not a Brahmin centric, that a lot of that non-Brahmins have contributed. Even the Lord Shiva, even the Vishnu, all are from different castes. Even the Valmiki, that a lot of that saints, sages are from non-Brahmin caste. Of course, it is very wrong to say that it's a Brahmanism. So the people of course, caste system, it was working initially well. Later it became rigid, and that became that ultimately because of its oppression, suppression, social distance, taboo, and that's totally different scenario. But of course, we understand the empathy. The people got affected by that. But Hinduism altogether cannot be called as the Brahmanization. Ladies and gentlemen, that's one section of population. You got non-Brahmins also part of it. Even the very religion, the scriptures in terms of that the myths, Puranas you come to know, you will understand that way. It is very wrong to say that way. So, and otherwise, the people don't understand, that the whole spirit of Hinduism. And as said in Indological perspective, Hinduism as a religion, it's not brought by, Aryans from West Asia or Central Asia, ladies and gentlemen, or even from Arctic region. Different theories are there. But that the very coming of the Aryans in their interaction with the native indigenous people, there came the evolution of Hinduism. That's what we are talking about. So that's according to G.S. Gurye Indological approach. That's one of the views. Up to you, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. So it is within the traditional caste structure we are talking about. Do you need don't apply this in the modern rational concept. Something that M. N. Srinivas, the process recognized within the traditional structure, especially religion and society among the Cooks of South India. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the that next. Yes. This Sanskritization, in his study of Cooks of Mysore, he came to know that lower castes were trying to raise their status because they felt as if the superior inferior relationship comes in. It is that way. Very well, Paka food, Kacha food, associated taboos, food taboo, vessel taboo, and even that endogamy. So that you can't go out of your caste to have a girl, or boy, spouse, of course, and associated social distance, even untouchability practice we are talking about. That's why today you talk about justify Article 17 and various, the protection of civil right or prohibition of discrimination, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, that the Amendment Act, everything we are talking about, even National Commission on SC/ST reservation, everything. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So why the lower caste were trying to raise their status, that in their caste hierarchy by adopting some cultural ideals of Brahmin. But that it's not possible. It never gives that mobility, structural mobility, but that gave mere cultural mobility, cultural change only. Way of life only changed. You were accorded honor, respect in the eyes of upper caste people, but nothing more than that. So that is what the concept's explanation. So as a result, that what happened, right? How you ape upper caste style. Maybe you resort to beetle net practice and you learn Carnatic music, right? You hear Pancharatra Kirtana, that Tiruvayar, Chennai Tiruvayar, all those stuff. It is that way. That what are all the part of things, of course, we are talking about, and it is that way. But in the process, lower caste people also giving up their non-vegetarian practice, meat eating practice when they live in Agraharam. Where Brahmins, that in the street, meant for that, of course, at the entrance of the temple, you got that street, of course, Agraham, very well. So it's not speaking bad. The process witness part of that our system, the caste system we are talking about. As a result, they left home, left some of their the ideals, especially which are considered impure by the Brahmins. What are all the things were considered by impure by the Brahmins? They gave up. And what are all the things considered by that Brahmins as pure, they started embracing, like that Carnatic music or worshipping, that all these things we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. To explain this process of mobility, especially cultural mobility, Srinivas used the term Brahmanization in the beginning. Later, he called it Sanskritization because it's a wider, in a broader sense. You know very well, it restricts only to the upper caste, in the sense Brahmins. But Sanskritization as a broad term, incorporating sometimes upper caste happen to be Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, even some places Sanskritization process I mentioned, Muslims, or sometimes tribals, Dalits, some places, it is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So, Sanskritization is a process of imitation in Indian society. Lower caste people trying to imitate the lifestyles of upper caste people. So, when it is done at the Western perspective, when you ape Western culture, it's called Westernization. But it has got its own difference. Don't confuse. Sanskritization, Indian phenomenon. Westernization, you ape West. It is that way. Especially, we come to know because of British people. 150 years rule of the British people that we come in contact. Yes. So, this Sanskritization is a process of imitation. You copy. The social status of individual is fixed on the basis of caste hierarchy. But the social status of an individual which is fixed is not changing the hierarchy. That is why I said mobility is zero. Not giving structural mobility. It gives you only cultural mobility, positional change in way of life, style of life. Not that you are moving from the Kshatriya to Brahmana, or Vaishya to Kshatriya. No, it's not. It's not possible. So that's why caste system is said to be a rigid institution, closed system, lack of flexibility, hereditary occupation. But it was functional in the beginning days. Later it became rigid because of its all those ill effects you might be aware. So that's why it became issue, right? So yes. So there are many lower castes, that who suffer from economic, religious, or social disabilities. You might be aware. So in order to improve their status, somewhere, that they want, that in their opinion they want to be respected, treated, that in a honorable way. So the lower caste people, that imitate the lifestyles of upper caste people. Even the, I witnessed, that a lot of kids studying in, Brahmin run institutions, that the kids belonging to non-Brahmin family, when they mingle with, Brahmin students, they will be talking using the phraseology. Ava nannarkala, vachundu, poindu, so all these languages, that the meant for, Brahmin families, that becomes, that the influence, the kids, developing. So it is that way. So the influence we are talking about. But in some cases, that the people near upper caste people by practicing this style. So this is what witnessed by M.N. Srinivas, especially, that Mysore case study. Of course, the Cook's case study, the concept is called Sanskritization. In the beginning, he used Brahmanization, but more than Brahmanization, Sanskritization is in broader sense. You might be aware. It is that way. So, why the necessity? Somewhere, he should be respected. The inferior position, that they want to have, they want to see some, that aspiration that they should be respected, honored somewhere in particular place. That thing. That's what we are talking about: oppression, suppression, social distance. Of course, somewhere, that you got opportunity, but it's not structural mobility. Mere cultural mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, Sanskritization is a process of cultural change towards twice born caste, towards upper caste. Of course, Sanskritization is a process in which lower caste adopt, not only imitate, you adopt the cultural pattern of higher caste. What happened over the days? That becomes, that lifestyle. You just imagine the Ilayaraja, he may be belonging to Dalit community. But that he learnt, that the very Carnatic music. Of course, he was given the Kumbha Maryada. The people, that all top class Brahmins, started respecting him, and lot of top class Brahmins, that were working under him. And his guru also, some TVG Gopalakrishna. What I'm talking about, his musical knowledge. Of course, he learned, and even that the very J.S. Das, that by birth Christian, he embraced Hinduism. Of course, that the Shembai, the Vaidyanathan, his guru, political guru. We are talking about all these things. Why? You adopt the cultural pattern of higher caste. Of course, that. So, but I don't think Ilayaraja for the learnt music for the sake of status. That he wanted to prove his passion in music, still running. That's why he became master. That's totally different scenario. But it's a mobility, the cultural mobility we are talking about. But that's what that very Yogendra Singh says. Even westernization leading to modernization. The westernization, though it is cultural change, that leads to modernization, which offers structural change. We're going to prove. But what I'm telling, the Ilayaraja, maybe it's cultural change at the beginning that has given structural change to him. The mobility, total mobility. But of course, that caste system, maybe he may be, but it is immaterial in the modern contemporary if we talk. So within that, you see, you may be respected, honored because of this. To rise their status in such a way, ladies and gentlemen, in some societies, lower caste people followed not only the customs of the Brahmins, but also the customs of locally dominant castes who happen to be Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, some places, as I said, Muslims, some places, as I said, tribals, some places, as I said, Dalits too. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. See how people, that ruralized, agriculture dependent people have to some extent, look modernized. It's aping. We are talking about Sanskritization, maybe the influence of, that upper caste people, of course, that they change the dress style, pattern, food habits also. It is that way, it's that way. They adopt the styles of upper caste people. Ladies and gentlemen, so Sanskritization is helpful in social mobility of lower caste, the mobility in the sense only in cultural sense, not structural sense. Sanskritization process not only confined to the caste people of Hindu society, it also found among tribal society, because you witness tribalization. So the low caste Hindus, residing neighbor to tribal people who happen to be dominant in the affluent tribal group people, they start imitating the lifestyles of tribal people, tribal culture. It is that way. So tribalization, it may be. It is that way, not only confined to the caste people and also the tribal society. As I said, in the Punjab, of course, aping the lifestyle of Muslims. It was that way, ladies and gentlemen. So the concept of Sanskritization has also given rise to de-Sanskritization, because that's why people that start aping Dalits, start aping that sometimes that Muslims. That is de-Sanskritization. It is that way. So there are some instances in modern times, some of the higher castes are imitating the behavior of lower caste. That's what we are talking about. And for example, Brahmins have started eating, taking meat, liquor. Yeah. So the Bengal Brahmins, they eat fish. They say in Tamil, kadalvari. Kadalvari. Sea banana. Sea banana they call the very fish. They eat fish. And I hear, that a lot of Brahmin, friends of mine, they started eating, eggs, because they want strength like that. The Kamal Hassan, Iyengar, of course, he eats everything you might be. Even Jayalalitha, that took everything you might be aware. It is that way, Iyengar lady. So it is that way. So now this is all clear-cut examples. You don't go against personal attack. So just for example, restrict yourself there. Not speaking bad about them. So that's a change we talk about. Why some of that Brahmin people, they run leather industries. Leather industries. The leather, that after the death of the cow, the skin, that the tanning process you might be, leather industry is run by Brahmins. How do you see the profession chosen in such a way? So you see changes, that in such a way. And some of them take liquor also. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen one Prahit, daily coming and waiting in my office for every day 100 rupees for liquor, and he will have multiple reasons for the justification of that 100 rupees, but that straight away goes to Tasmak liquor shop. This is not the personal thing we are witnessing. The failed personalities. It's not that accusing the whole community or caste. Some failed people, or maybe that some people are ready to change. Forget about poverty. Even the upper caste style. They mingle with the networking, the Lions Club. And various club mechanisms you might be aware. Social gathering, of course. Well, all those things happening is that way, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing is absolutely correct, nothing is absolutely wrong. That varies from place to place, time to time. Yes, the context decides what is right. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So westernization, of course, the next concept what we are talking about, westernization here. This westernization, ladies and gentlemen, the concept of westernization along the Sanskritization was an important concept to analyze social change in Indian society. That's that according to M.N. Srinivas, that because when you address social change, you address culturally, structurally, functionally. When you talk about cultural change, you address both westernization and Sanskrit. The concept of westernization, aping the West, imitating the West, Western style, Western culture, explains the impact of Western contact on Indian society and culture. That's what 150 years of rule of the British people, that started with East India Company, that resulted in India's, that contact, where you talk about primary westernization, because, that educated people immediately in touch with them. And later that came from, that next level and third level like that. Primary westernization, secondary westernization, tertiary westernization. All Babus, educated people in touch with those, that the Western, that bureaucratic mechanism, you might be aware. It is that way. So the Western contact, that on Indian society and culture, that resulted in, that local elements, that started copying. It's almost like, that xenocentrism. There is a concept, you copy foreign. But here, the British people ruled India after East India Company, you might be aware, that became possibility here. So this is also part of, the cultural change. Let me reinforce once again, ladies and gentlemen, here. Yes, so M.N. Srinivas applied the very structural functional approach to explain the changes, that are possibility of changes in the Indian society. So using this, how, in what way it is reinforcing social order. The system adjusts itself to various changes, because India as a country witnessed a lot of invasions. That colonialism, of course, the Podu and the friend. I used to give the code for that. Podu, Portuguese; Du, Dutch; Yen, English; Danish people, then French people. You might be aware. So all these, that the European colonizers came to India. So a lot of invasions. After that, you talk about, prior to that, the Muslim Arabs in the invasion, the conquest, the Mughal rule, Delhi Sultanate, where you talk about the SKTSN, Sides, the Khaljis, Tughlaqs, and that's that first thing you talk about, slaves, Khaljis, Tughlaqs, Sides, Lodis, ladies and gentlemen. So the various invasions and colonization, that affected the fabric of Indian society, Indian social order. Even the Dr. Kalam, in his book, that writes that way. We were spiritual guru, we were superpower. All these things ultimately disrupted, and that ultimately brought some sort of confusion. The people got reduced to the level of inferiority complex. This is right thing. That's why he started focusing on fresh young minds, students. It is good day to recall, that. So that very Dr. Kalam, that the people's president, the born today, you might be aware. So it is that way, that. So all these things brought down, affected the changes, but how the society restructures itself to adopt the changes so as to ensure social order. That is what M.N. Srinivas we are talking about. So structural functionalism approach we are talking about. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So he used this term to describe the changes that the non-Western country, of course India, non-Western, that the country had undergone as a result of prolonged contact with the Western one, especially the East India Company and British rule. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way we are talking about. How, as a non-Western country, of course, India, the Eastern Oriental country, we are talking about, that the South Asia, you're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. In what way it got influenced by the impact of, the British 150 years of British rule, as well as. So this is, you just see, that the monastery type of, that the Asian structure, but see the, that McDonald and KFC even, it is that way, see the Western aping the West, the food style. Nowadays, the foods are never prepared in your own kitchen. You got Swiggy, Zomato. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. Yes, the concept of Westernization along with Sanskritization, was an important, that we are talking about. I think it got, that. Yes. So it implies certain value preferences. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, the very Westernization, when you're talking about, it implies some value preferences. That's why the Westernization concept is called value-laden concept we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So the very Westernization, what we are talking about, not only includes the introduction of the new institutions, but also the fundamental changes in the old institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, it's talking about, you don't simply copy the Western, the value system, and also it affects, that you give up, as we said in the Sanskritization, it's not imitating the upper caste. Also, you give up, that the very practices considered as impure by Brahmins. The lower caste people also giving up some practices, they were considered as impure by Brahmins. Also, you embrace, some practices of upper caste, that considered as pure by upper caste. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. Same is here. It's not only, that includes, that introduction of new institutions, but also you talk about fundamental changes in the old institutions. It's that way. So if you talk, that the very impact of Westernization, what are all the things, ingredients we have to address here? The ideas of rights, liberties, freedom, that liberty, equality, fraternity, the French Revolution, it became part and parcel of, that Indian Constitution, part of preamble, even the modern education, the Charter Act, that 1813, or Macaulay Minutes, the Woods Dispatch, very well, the English education, of course, modern education, and of course, that is city-centric, that education, the presidencies, of course, that Calcutta, Madras, Bombay presidencies, you might be aware. Even today, you got presidency colleges there. The modern education introduction, because they want to generate babus for their bureaucracy. Yes, it is that way. In place of Gurukulam, the traditional model education, you might be aware. So, influence over socio-religious reform movements, yes, it's because of that. Western educated, our own intellectuals ultimately, came against, superstitions on the part of our Indian way of life. The sati, and also, they favored widow remarriage, thanks to Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, the very slavery, the oppression, suppression, everything they, that spoke against us. And the rituals and ceremonies written, because even when in the Chicago, the World Parliament of, that religions, that when our Swami Vivekananda address, you might be aware, that how India was, and he changed the opinion of the Westerners, especially Americans, how they viewed India. India was considered as land of, that millions and millions of gods, land of elephants, land of snakes. That's what they view. He changed that perception. India, a land of, a spiritual capital of the world. That gave. He introduced India that way. And he acted as a bridge between West and East. And also he appreciated the scientific temperament and respect they accord to women, the Western world. It is that way. So the changed notion about India brought in by, our the very, Swami Vivekananda, you might be aware. So it is that way. Why? The education, of course, that has become instrument of social change. So Western educated individuals they went against, all round, superstitions, rituals and ceremonies, and liberated people, and especially they liberated them towards humanism spirit, rationalization spirit, where you justify logical connectivity, rights, liberties, freedom on the part of an individual. It is that way. Don't say democracy, you copied from there. Even, that the Uttaramerur inscription, part of, that, that India, South India especially, that talks about, the Kudavolai Therdal. Democracy, you can find trace from here. It's not, the democracy is not imported one from the West. That's totally different scenario. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So the new kind of job and economic opportunities, so that unleash because of the East India Company, British rule, from the traditional model, from the traditional cottage-based industries, when they move to, factory-based, that production here, and also railways, bureaucracy, and the role of middle class, the modern education, everything, all around we are talking about, even civil services you call, the changes in administrative structure, army, law courts, everything, that, so the impact of westernization, of course, you have to understand, but they created with the intention of exploiting India to run smooth administration, especially to feed their industrialization, the Europe. That's totally different scenario. But of course, in unintended consequences, we inherited the setup. Even today, it is running the nation. Unintended consequences, latent function of Archimedes, the definition. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So increase the process of, that the Sanskritization to some extent. So what happens, right? This westernization, that increased, fastened the very process of Sanskritization. What happened, right? So there is also saying, when lower caste people imitate the lifestyles of upper caste people started imitating the Western styles. Here educated people started going abroad, you might be aware. So, that the Europe, United States of America, they started copying, that particular style, you might be aware. So it's in general, but it's not, that a particular generalized version we are talking about. Of course, the increased process of, that Sanskritization because of westernization also. All modern transport, communication, technology, support, that the bureaucratic mechanism improved the speed of, the very Sanskritization. So because, that immediately that was, the opportunity was seized by upper caste people. So lower caste people yet to come up to that level. That's why we are today justifying the reservation. Got the idea, na? So ultimately lower caste people were always in the receiving end. Upper caste people immediately arrested, seized that opportunities, offered by the westernization. So once again, the model stays. Lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people with vigor. The speedy imitation now. So westernization, speeding up the process of, Sanskritization, that we witness, that's according to, that we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, though the changes have taken place in society, but that the changes only cultural level, not structural changes. That's what we are talking about, as we spoke in Sanskritization. Both westernization and, the Sanskritization, they are otherwise called the clear-cut examples of cultural change. Of course, they are responsible for change in society, but offering mere change in culture, change in way of life, change in style of life, change in custom, tradition, belief, faith, art, literature, architecture, social norms, social values. Ladies and gentlemen, they are all put together, well, culture, even civilization, representing the material aspect of the culture. The bullock cart technology got replaced by, railroad networks. Yes. That way, we talk about it as that way. So in other words, there are changes within the structure, but not change of the structure. If at all you talk about even change within the structure, microscopic level, within the structure, not of the structure. It's not a paradigm shift from one structure to another structure. It's not addressing structural change, but addressing change, intrastructural change, not interstructural change. It's not breaking down of, that institution from one paradigm to another. No. It is talking about the change. It's mere imitation only. Change in lifestyle, change in culture, change in civilization. Civilization is nothing but material aspect of the culture. Ladies and gentlemen, well about all these things. For example, people who engaged in new occupations, in spite of that, have retained the caste identities while entering into the new structure, because that, see, this is what the caste survives here. That's according to M. N. Srinivas we are talking about. So we are talking about Sanskritization, westernization. In spite of that, people never lost. It is without loosening your caste identity. It happened, both westernization, even the very Sanskrit. If they lost caste identity, the meaning is that you have become mobile. You started moving from one stratum to another, from Kshatriya to Brahmana. That never happened. You can talk about religious conversion, not about caste conversion, ladies and gentlemen. So you never lose caste identity. Caste survived in such a way. That's what we are talking about, that, ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So now we have to address, criticisms, that in general. After that, I will also, that try to supply some more informations with that, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. See, the immense Srinivas, the very contribution, of course, what we are talking about, micro level finding through structural functional perspective. So it's not applicable to, it's not like as in the case of, the American structural functionalists like Talcott Parsons, Archimedes, who gave, grand theory of social system, voluntaristic theory of social action, all those stuffs, that it is not like that. But it is micro level finding of structural functional perspective. Often it becomes difficult to apply or generalize at the macroscopic level. That's a criticism. Because, that the very cooks of South India, he applied, that at the village level, at the tribal level, all his case studies. Even Rampura village, I'm going to elaborate also. This is to give you overall idea. I will add some more points also with my notes. I'm going to discuss with you, don't worry. So, and also, subaltern, that scholars like Gail Wombet advocated that Srinivas, that sociology suffers from Brahmanical domination, and the elitist, he always represents the upper stratum of the society. Like, that's the criticism always, as we criticize, it's not we criticize, as, in the G.S. Gurye, Indological approach, the textbook view, Sanskrit text-based view was criticized. The same way here, M. N. Srinivas was criticized, because he represents, that the caste hierarchy, the Sanskritization, Brahmanization, the terms, though he says some places, the de-Sanskritization, though he says, Sanskritization is broader than Brahmanization, but in spite of that, he is not free from criticism, especially from subaltern scholars, the Gail Wombet we are talking about. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So Srinivas' caste-centric study, that of Indian society, caste-centric study, that we are talking about, the caste 21st century avatar book he has written, the caste as one of the forms of social stratification, very well, we will be devoting a separate session over caste and contribution from various sociologists. You will make the difference. And we spoke about, the very caste system and associated 6 characteristic features on the part of G.S. Gurye. That's a different story. Yes. So Srinivas' caste-centric study of Indian society was criticized by Andre Bataille. of course, that who claim to use, that caste, class, and power to study the changing nature of society. He took into account the multidimensional aspects of social stratification, the caste, class, power. But that M.N. Srinivas restricted himself in terms of caste-centric study. Even Louis Dumont, considered caste-centric study. But whereas M.N. Srinivas, that the microcosm, of course, that the bone of contention when he was trying to understand Indian society, he understood, he did all of his field study, the research works, microscopic works in terms of village-centric studies. And also, that understood, that's what I'm going to talk. We gave you the brief introduction also. So the Marxist sociology, people like MSc, the very, the Karl Marx we are talking about, of course, Marxist sociology, and A.R. Desai, Indian context you can talk about. So they criticize the theory, the very structural functionalism theory is conservative, status quoism, that they are not ready to accept the change. They are completely preoccupied with the notion called order, stability, equilibrium, cohesion, not ready to embrace the change. It is that way. So which ignored the possibility of conflict in a society. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand. So it's that way, that so they are otherwise they ignore the very conflict or contradictions, exploitations, or radical, the change. So it is that way. Marxists, they are meant for all those things. They accuse, they criticize. It is that way. Accusation is wrong. Criticism will be appropriate, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way. That. So you condemn, you criticize that way. So further, the concept of Sanskritization was criticized by various scholars like D.N. Majumdar, who advocated, de-Sanskritization for Kashmiri Pandits, because, the local Muslims, when I was in Jammu also I could witness. So, that the majority of, that the Pandits, that how they, you see some sort of fusion, so aping the styles of, that the dominant caste or dominant religion, that particular locality. So definitely there will be influence, well, right? Just that way. So de-Sanskritization addressed by D. N. Majumdar. And M.N. Srinivas, that ideas on Sanskritization and dominant caste have made him closer to the Hindutva ideology of cultural nationalism. So it is that way, that you understand, Hindutva ideology of it is the Brahmanization, the pure, impure notion, dominant caste, that all those stuffs what we are talking about, even the cultural change. So that talks about, that the very cultural nationalism, it addresses that way, the cultural mosaic of India, the Hindutva ideology, of course, that it is that way. So Ghanshyam Shah, you might be aware, who wrote, book on social movements, you might be aware, and S.C. Dubey, that he's also, belonging to this structural functionalism, claim that the dominant caste is not a cohesive group. Rather, dominant group or individual among them protect their particular interests. That. So when we are talking about dominant caste, especially the contribution from M.N. Srinivas, it may not be always, a group representation as a dominant. Maybe a particular caste, some few individuals may be dominating this sphere in the name of dominant caste. That's what's happening. That's true. You go, which caste is dominant in your locality? Not entire. There are a lot of poor people also. The people of the same caste not respected. Though it may be appearing like caste, at the end of the day, class is ruling. Your ownership over economic resources. That's what I'm questioning. Do you think a caste leader, a dominant caste leader, will give his, that daughter to, that our son will marry his daughter or son with the same caste, that with a poor guy? No, that will never happen. It is that way. Otherwise, they are very open to embrace, that spouse from another caste. Intercaste marriages, they are very open. That too with upper caste, not with lower caste. So, ladies and gentlemen, it may be appearing like caste, but at the end of the day, Karl Marx comes to the picture. Class is ruling. But this is one way of looking at things. Another way, in spite of the class, for important things, that the caste, the affinity, the closeness, the identity politics, or for important, the celebrations, rituals, they never give up. All the stories we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, that way. So it is this and all the things we are witnessing, of course, that. So that thing, that it's not outrightly rejected. We are talking about and various resources. Before going there, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take that to some more, that the points also, that when we talk about. So the very structural functionalism, that we spoke enough information about that. You can take down, that some points I would like to, that supply here. Of course, Mysore Narsimhacharya Srinivas, you know very well, and it's totally different from the whole Indian sociology, completely under the clutches of Indological perspective. It is the very immense Srinivas gave paradigm shift from textbook textual view to field-based view, direct observation view. You know very well that paradigm shift. You might be aware. And with the very immense Srinivas, that the approach is also called as the blend of that both Ratcliffe Brown and Evans Pritchard, very well. You might be aware, and also that the British anthropologist Ratcliffe Brown and Malinowski, you might be aware. And he was trained in Britain, all those stuffs, everything we spoke already. And he was quite critical of the American influence on Indian sociology. This particular fact I already emphasized, especially that the promotion of American values done by that the institutions like Ford Foundations. He was not in favor of it, and even the American social scientists, that who promoted the American values, especially in the name of making sociology a scientific discipline, they promoted American values. He was deadly against. He gave indigenization of sociology, especially through focus on villages, microcosm. The village study. You might be aware it is that we are talking about. Yeah, it's a blend of both. That theoretical as well as empirical. That particular point we emphasize. Very well. And the method of direct observation to study Cook society. This particular point we emphasize. Keep on. That you might be aware. And also the introduction of ethnography, that ethnicity, study about ethnicity we are talking about, ethnography we are talking about. And he took into account, that but in spite, though there is a paradigm shift we are talking about from textbook view to field specific view, field study view, that there are some elements from Indology also penetrated, influenced, and that cannot be, ignored. So you have to understand, because that became foundation. So parallelly, the influence was there. And we are talking about, so as Mahatma Gandhi said, India lives in villages, even the very immense Srinivas we are talking about, that especially the village centric study, that understanding Indian society only through villages. That if you want to understand Indian society, go to village, you will understand, because India lives in villages, Mahatma Gandhi said. Of course, M.N. Srinivas started. And M.N. Srinivas also refuted the logic of the cultural, that the very theories like Louis Dumont, whose emphasis on caste system. If you want to understand, that India, understand, of course, caste, no doubt, emphasis differing from one sociologist to another. That's all. You understand the difference. When the cultural theorist Louis Dumont's emphasis on caste, but whereas M.N. Srinivas' emphasis was on, of course, very well, the very culture, that the very, the village-based culture, the very village, you might be aware. It is that way. Not only that, we are talking about the study of the villages, through field studies and historical analysis. The field study approach, you come to know what is the ground reality. Historical analysis, how he took into account all historical resources. They spoke, the colonial sources, they spoke, the Indian society, that unchanging, rigid, the timeless. Now, he also witnessed change, the dynamism on the part of, he refuted these theories, you might be aware. So the British administrators, who gave the opinion about village in India as unchanging unit of self-sufficiency. It has got everything on it. It won't change like that. But according to, the M.N. Srinivas, village had served as a unifying identity. See the order, unifying identity. And that village, that unity was quite significant in rural life. Even the collectivism is the core principle. Let me put it very simply. In village, if you go, that whole village will react, for a particular event. But that you don't see in the case of urban areas, urban local bodies. Why? Because that anonymity or individualism, privacy is the core principle. But in village, collectivism is the core principle. That's why village unity. That's possible in small-sized local body. So that you witness there, collectivism as the core principle. And not only that, this particular village-based studies of M.N. Srinivas, providing and giving importance, that to ethnographic research, study about ethnicity, study about, various ethnicity. What is ethnicity? Race plus culture. The race is pure biological category. When you add race with that, the cultural dimension, maybe the language, it is wrong to, I think I said already to you, I don't know, in previous sessions, that it is very wrong to say Sri Lankan Tamil ethnic issue. Because when you say ethnicity, That's there you got race plus culture. After all, language is the vehicle of the culture. You should not say Tamil ethnic issue, ethnicity, ethnic clash. Ethnicity as a broad term has got both race and culture within that. So ethnicity is, that way. So study about various ethnic groups. We are talking about ethnography. It is that way. So and we are talking about, that the rapid social change that's taking place at the village level. That the very immense Srinivas, especially the countryside, you call immense Srinivas witness, and that all of his contributions ultimately helped the planners and legislatures, that and framers of various policies. That's the very purpose. You can, if you ask me why structural functionalism in India, because it is a system. They want to understand how it's functioning, so that effective policies, programs can be announced, so that that the governing process, that moves to the next level. That's the very purpose. It helped the policymakers a great deal in designing the development agenda for villages. Understand, without knowing that, the predominant way of life in India is ruralness, agricultural dependent. More than 60% of the livelihood, depending on agriculture. Even well. That's why Manrega became highly successful. The story, and provide a new role for the discipline like sociology, the context of independent nation, whatever may be. These are all the things, that additional information I thought of adding. I think it is that way, and. Yeah, of course, that the very immense scene was studied. You please take down. I told you in all my sessions, I expect you to sit with paper and pen. It's apart from, the PPT presentation, I also gather a lot of information and write then and there. Let me take this opportunity to supply more information from different sources. Please take down. You should not miss that. So he studied Indian society in terms of the patterns of relations, social institutions, and their working in a holistic manner. This particular point we already emphasized. And Srinivas also interpreted a particular social phenomenon like cause, family, religion in functional terms, structural functionalism, you understand? But within the larger context of, that India. What way all these elements contributing for the establishment of social order, that emphasis we gave you. And even the study of Cook's, that he described the concept of functional unity and established interpretation in the context of, that the various rituals followed by Cook. So the way of life, style of life, various cultural elements in what way, reinforcing functional unity. It is that way, that all the steps, that we spoke, ladies and gentlemen. And that I think so. One of the major criticism of his writings and approach is that his focus remained on community and caste, apart from village study. You might be aware. And some social thinkers, that structural functionalism, we are talking about the criticism against it. And his concept of village is overburdened with caste. When you go to village, it's caste dependent, no doubt at all. It's agriculture dominant. That's what we said as G.S. Gurye's statement, I believe. So industries create class, soils create caste. Agriculture, that's the, that ultimately breeding ground of the caste system, associated judgment system, no doubt. It is that way. So overburdened with the caste, he didn't develop a macro understanding of the Indian society. That criticism we gave you already, similar to that one developed by the grand theorists of that American, the very functionalism, structural functionalism school. I think you are aware. And he viewed Indian village as a prototype of Indian society, or let you take this phraseology, microcosm of Indian society, almost like G.S. Gurye. And the M.N. Srinivas, as we spoke, that he rejected the colonial notion of self-sufficiency of Indian villages. And he also witnessed, though we talk about within the caste system only endogamy, marrying within the caste, he also witnessed some, that village exogamy. You go out of village to choose your spouse. In that way, there happened, interdependence, that among the villagers. That fabric he witnessed, that's important point we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, and also, that village to be integrated with the wider society. That India lives in villages. Of course, it is that way. You understand the basic unit of society. You say family, but here the basic unit of their Indian society, of course, village. They speak that way. And also, that M.N. Srinivas analysis over marriage, family, judgment system. They are all very central things to understand. That a village as well as caste system of the village centric. That all these things we are talking about. I think, ladies and gentlemen, some more points, that on the part of, if you ask me, the very Sanskritization. I think we spoke all these points, of course, that Sanskritization of a group usually Of course, let me take you back for Sanskritization. Yeah. So Sanskritization of a group has usually the effect of improving its position in the local hierarchy. So it is an opportunity, as I told you, right? People that were all deprived economics, in terms of economy, religion, or even social disabilities. The eye for that, that otherwise from that from little tradition to great tradition, from people practicing that small tradition, of course, that they want to embrace the great tradition on the part of upper caste. It is that way we are talking about, and even that happens in terms of the pilgrim centers or monastery, even proselytizing sect, even that the downtrodden people, the scheduled caste got converted to Christianity, even Islam, you can also consider that way. It is also Sanskritization. That's why that Yogendra Singh said the universal specific case of anticipatory socialization. What is anticipatory socialization? You also anticipate that you will be accorded high honor status in the eyes of upper caste people. So lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people. That gives only cultural change, positional change, not structural change, with an expectation to get honor in the eyes of upper caste people. So that's what Weising says. Sanskritization is nothing but universal specific case of anticipatory socialization. According to Yogendra Singh, that well, who wrote the book, Modernization of Indian Tradition. I have to add some more points also. Yes. So I think that's enough. We are talking about some more points. Let me take you to the very Yogendra Singh's that views on Sanskritization that I did not present part of your PPT. I just gave that his version only. So Yogendra Singh that says in the two levels that you can understand the very Sanskritization process. The first level, he says, historic specific. Please take into account historic specific. In historic specific case, he says Sanskritization refers to those processes in Indian history which led to the changes in various castes, because it is indicative of an indigenous source of social change. Because very well, you would have read Modernization of Indian Tradition. Otherwise, you are going to read the sources for social change could be from within or from external source. It may be indigenous sources of change or exogenous sources of change. But that here he addresses the changes from within. So lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people, that changes. Of course, the cultural change happens, that within Indian tradition. That's of course, that indigenous sources of, the social change, the broad historical spectrum of India. That's what historic specificity in Indian context, he says, that's number one. So another level of, meaning for Sanskritization, when you talk about, the Yogendra Singh, for M.N. Srinivas Sanskritization, the contextual specific. So second thing is, first one, historic specific. Second one is contextual specific. What is that, if you ask me? In contextual specific sense, Sanskritization denotes contemporary processes of cultural imitation. Contemporary processes of cultural imitation of upper caste by lower caste or subcaste in different parts of India, and also implies Sanskritization is not uniform phenomenon. That never happened. That uniform way, as always. That lower caste imitating the lifestyles of upper caste. Some places it became de-Sanskritization also. This is contextual specific. Sometimes tribalization, sometimes Islamization. Gentlemen, so that if at all you talk about the conversion, apply, if you apply Islamization, or that you talk about religious conversion, maybe Christianization, why not? It is that way, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. And of course, that we spoke that enough. I think that, yes, the Sanskritization as a process of social change in the contemporary Indian society has lost much of its that relevance due to reservation policy. Of course, there may be the question linking India's current reservation policy with Sanskritization. Yeah, because that you talk about always lower caste imitating the lifestyles of upper caste. When Dalits, they were given, I emphasized in the beginning, lot of that provisions according to the constitution, so as to address that inclusive governance, or that article 15 within bracket 4, 16 within bracket 4, you talk about even article 17. And that when that is a scenario for social justice, so as to provide level playing field, protective discrimination, positive discrimination, especially through that, and also Dalit consciousness, the people that develop that consciousness, we are all Dalit, that attitude, they enter into collective bargaining. So the Dalit movements you hear in different parts of that India, and even Ambedkar, of course, who initiated the process, the Mahar movement, and got frustrated within the fold of the Hindu caste system, he embraced Mahar movement. In the Nagpur, you might be aware, even most of the Buddhists in the Nagpur, of course, they emphasize this history also. You know well, the Dalit consciousness and its rise, you have to understand. And also the westernization replacing Sanskritization. So, that the Sanskritization losing its charm because of that. So, and also the democratic polity, because whether you are upper caste, whoever maybe, if you want votes of in democracy, the heads are counted, not weighed. Let me repeat: heads are the majority, the majority party politics is the part of democracy where you need the votes of everybody, whether they are that upper caste, lower caste. So there comes importance for Dalit community. So there comes what influencing the voting behavior of the masses. That's why the appeal in the name of the lower caste leaders, or even usage of that Ambedkar in a predominant way by all political parties competing that to inherit the legacy of the very Ambedkar. You might be aware. When that is a scenario, where is the question of Sanskritization? And they will have their own consciousness. They will be very keen in terms of preservation of that identity, and also to be part, to represent in the parliament or respective democratic institutions that way. So there, that Sanskritization losing its charm, that you might be aware, that, and also very well, the erstwhile depressed classes are now recognizing their numerical strength. They have become dominant caste in a particular locality, right? So, and are using politics and socio-economic processes to assert their own identity. It's not saying that I'm Dalit, so what? It is that way. So, because the numerical strength that gives sense of security, the collective bargaining. So from the feeling of inferiority, they started establishing superiority, given accessibility to all the resources. Ladies and gentlemen, even political parties are very the keen to have leaders from Dalit community to do away with that wrongs they have done in the past party, so that they may not be labeled as the party belonging to upper caste. They want to have the diversified that influencing of voting behavior of the masses. So they go with that, they ensure reservation, even in the party, in the portfolio, in the party leadership position. That way, so all these things are happening, ladies and gentlemen. So they assert their identity rather than imitating Dvijas or twice bonds. You might be aware. So that it is that way, ladies and gentlemen, and even that the westernization I spoke about, the various ingredients of westernization. If you talk to me, it's completely based on westernization. We spoke about Sanskritization, and in westernization, that you have to understand, we spoke about the very humanitarianism, rationalism. That's the core principle we are talking about. Of course, Yogendra Singh says even this westernization, though we say cultural change leading to modernization, change in structure. Of course, in India, the presence of 150 years of rule of the British administration. You're talking about aping West, imitating the lifestyles of the West, especially because of the contact with West, the British people. But that created various institutions that resulted in modernization also. That's according to Yogendra Singh. And also when you talk about that the byproduct of westernization, you talk about the serious institutional and social reforms happen in India because of the westernization, and also rationalization of ritual sphere. Of course, it's becoming more secular. You give up a lot of rituals and ceremonies, and the change in belief system also we witness parallelly. And those days, that so every Brahmin, they have to find a boy for that young girl, and but that's not happening. Even the constitution is not permitting. The law of the land is not permitting. So those days it was considered sin, now gone. Even sati, if you don't practice sin, now it's gone. And tonsuring the head of the widow, and also asking her to wear white sari, now it's no more. Even the widows, the Brahmin family, I see they are with that bindi, the vermilion, that they never give up. Right? That the symbols, that it's surviving ultimately. So it is that way, that so the social reforms, that widow remarriage we already spoke. And also that that the art and the architecture style, the change, impact, influence we are talking about. Even a lot of that nowadays the real estate business, the villa, the Westminster model, you see. People prefer that, even the entrance of the Casa Grande, and so many, that the real estate people, that all the construction activity, you see the entrance, the aping the Western model, art and architecture, the style, the disco, Of course, the instruments, modern instruments in music we are talking about, even literature style, the Indian English writers, the R.K. Narayanan, Vikram Seth, of course, Anita Desai, so many people, Of course, you see, a lot of readers, that from, that India appreciating the Western, the value system, the Harry Potter, the J.K. Rowling, ladies and gentlemen, it's that way we are talking about. The influence is there. And also even the art and architecture, when we talk about the artists, Ravi Verma, Rabindranath Tagore, and Chandu Menon, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, all, that got influence, under colonial regime, the Western impact because of the influence of art and architecture, even the very, the educational system we spoke, that English education, the modern education in place of, Gurukulam, Guru Sishya based education, and also Indian representation in ICS. All those stories, ladies and gentlemen. And also the economic system in place of, the guild system or judgment system. You talk about, market-based economy, the capitalist economy, the factory-based mode of production. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen, and even the advanced transportation and communication we are talking about. And these are all the points, that, and the rise of nationalism spirit, and especially the exploitation unable to tolerate and Western educated intelligentsia, and whose emphasis on, that liberty, equality, fraternity, and they understood, all-round exploitation, relative deprivation, and social movements in different parts, that, of course, diversified social movements we had. And thanks to the leadership of, that Western educated, of course, the barrister, of course, that the very Mahatma Gandhi ji, and also, that Nehru, Patel, also joined the club, the barrister later. And Western educated intelligentsia ultimately, that, and giving the leadership to the, the collective mobilization of the people against the Western exploitation under British rule. Ladies and gentlemen, that way, the rise of nationalism spirit. Why? Because of the ideas of, the democracy, self-determination, rule of law. So that became part and parcel of, the Indian freedom fighters we spoke. And even, that we spoke about, the very social mobility. The Western, that it's not only Sanskritization where we speak about, the cultural mobility, the Westernization, that created a scope for greater spatial mobility. Job opportunities, you move from place to place. So you are free from the clutches of your own caste-bound social disabilities. So you go to the new world. You are respected in terms of your education there. Our societal contact helped breaking many cultural notions. That became part and parcel of, that the traditional society. So all these things we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, that it is that way. I think that's enough. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, that's fantastic, that we touched. Even, that on the part of Westernization, we spoke about primary Westernization and secondary Westernization. When we talk about, primary Westernization, it is emergence of the Westernized subcultural pattern. Of course, through minority section, the people who were in touch with, that the British 150 years of British rule or East India Company. And that is the first thing we are talking about. And secondary Westernization, we are talking about sections of population whose direct contact with the first level of, that what I spoke, that the people who were in touch with, that the British people, that the secondary people who's touch with the first category. And tertiary, of course, that it's a general spread. So, that especially we are talking about Western cultural traits, where you talk about the new technology, dress, food style, and various habits we are talking about. All those things, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's fantastic, that we covered. I think, that you got enough point, I think. And I think, this is, fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. I think if you ask me, that we have covered all. So, ladies and gentlemen, that hope we discuss, structural functionalism, how it was, that viewed by M.N. Srinivas. Of course, that he, that derived from, of course, social anthropology, especially from Radcliffe Brown, Malinowski, and inspired. He never got influenced by, that the American structural functionalism model of the grand theory. Rather, his focus on micro level, especially on the Cook study of, India. You come to know that too. When he was trying to understand Indian society, his basis became, that the village-centric study, not like, that the Louis Dumont's caste-centric study. And also, that he moved from, a paradigm shift from the textual, Sanskrit text-based Indological approach to, that field, that research-based approach, direct observation especially. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, that all these things, and apart from that, how the structural functionalism, in ensuring order, stability, the associated criticism we have discussed, and also, that when he was trying to understand, that Indian society, especially change in society, the change in terms of culture, the very Sanskritization, Westernization, and not only that, well, the very renowned Indian sociologist Mysore Narasimhachar Srinivas, who was awarded Batma Awards, that in India, and also, that a chair was created from, that Indian contribution, especially from Karnataka administration, the Oxford University, you might be aware, and recognized for the supply of, that other household phrases like, wood bank politics, dominant caste, apart from Sanskritization, Westernization. Ladies and gentlemen, that we spoke at length, and also we criticized, that each and every, points at length, that I think it's right time. Let me take you to the, the resources, no doubt, all books written by M.N. Srinivas you can go through to get the spirit. The classic monumental work on the part of M.N. Srinivas, of course, Remembered Village book, and also, that social change and Caste 21st Century Avatar, you can go through small books. That's very fantastic. And also, that even in Dipankar Gupta, you got various chapters, that of this M.N. Srinivas available there. And IGNOU materials also can be consulted for this, ladies and gentlemen. So I think, that one of the famous, that after the India's, that founding father of sociology, Indian sociology, if you say, that's G.S. Gurye, methodological approach. But, you got, the very renowned sociologist, a Western educated scholar, of course, from, apart from, PhD from the Bombay University, M.N. Srinivas should be appreciated for all of his contributions. As I told you, right, from infancy level of sociology to mature level of sociology, that the paradigm shift, that happened, and it also became a strong foundation for other social thinkers, sociologists to enrich the subject matter of Indian sociology. It's because of M.N. Srinivas. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, hope you would have benefited out of this, the today's lecture. And, it's a very small contribution. Of course, it's not like much like, the great thinkers of, the paper one. And Indian sociologists, they've got modest contribution. We address within that, and also with linking with the previous year questions and associated syllabus. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is fantastic time for us, that to move, and, that, of course, to wind up the session, right, and, that you can also type all of your questions, that. So welcome to Unacademy once again, ladies and gentlemen. And as I told you, right, that, so the increasing, fee structure is on the cards by Unacademy soon. So, that seize the opportunity. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Please go for iconic program to benefit more. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciating you once again for the participation and passions. Hope you would have benefited out of it. And we'll meet, tomorrow, that with another topic, that to enlighten you more, I believe, with the blessings of Almighty God. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. That good night. Nice of you. Bye. Thank you.